Yo, what is up, Knights? Just Rick here, bringing you guys the KDNF Winter Festival for 2020. As it is known this year, though, it's called the DNF 2020 Universe Festival. Don't know why they decided to change the name. But anyway, guys, to help guide me through this festival, I have a translation for both parts done by Yukino Kaori. And yes, I did mention there are two parts to this festival that kind of happened 1 week apart from each other. Again, Yukino Kaori, also known as Halation, who has done a translation or kind of a recap of his own on Reddit, and I kind of want to go over all of that data. And he has done both parts as well, which is going to be really nice for us. Now, to explain a little bit of how the festival worked, in part one, they kind of recapped a lot of what KDNF got in terms of their updates, which is something that's very common. That's what the KDNF Festival is for, to basically talk about upcoming content. And that's what part one was about. And if we jump to part two, actually, they do talk about stuff related to Neopol, the company behind KDNF, but they mostly talk about their other related games, such as Project Barbecue, DNF Mobile, as well as DNF Duel. I want to talk about all of those a little bit, but mostly this series, guys, is about KDNF, which is most of the stuff that happened in part one. And the first thing we got to talk about, guys, is the female gunners. And they finally got their Neo Awakening. I feel so bad for you guys. You guys have been on suicide watch for so long. I'm so happy you guys are finally redeemed. And I do think that they did get some decent awakenings. If we look, guys, let's go ahead and look at some of the illustrations. I really do like how the female ranger looks right here. Definitely the best out of all of her awakenings. Waifu material, basically, showcasing some of those chains. I do think this is kind of a downgrade from the Stormbringer, the female launcher, to a, I mean, she looks kind of badass, but in terms of the actual looks, I'm not digging it. Here you can see the female mechanic definitely sporting these very sensible glasses here, and I do bring attention to that because that will become more apparent later. Definitely a plot-centric character, as well as the female Spitfire, which is kind of cool. I think the main thing here is what's up with this gear here. What's up with this arm tonfa thing she's got going on, which we'll showcase obviously more when we look at the actual awakenings. Starting with the female ranger herself. Now, the main thing, I really do like that new skill that she got. Obviously, it's focused around chains, but humongous AoE, and I think that's one main problem that female ranger has, is kind of weak AoE. She has great combos, but not great AoE, and that skill really does help. Here you can see her through Awakening itself. Obviously, room-wide coverage right there, and very, again, chain-centric, which I gotta say, I don't really like it that much, mostly because it looks almost identical to the male Brawler 3A itself, which I'm not saying that they can't look similar because they're obviously chain-centric skills, but they honestly look like exactly the same. I bet you can overlap some of them. Maybe some assets were copied among them, but here, moving on to the female launcher, you see her new skill is the flamethrower skill, which I'm not really sure how often flamethrower is used on the female launcher as is, but my guess is 3A will change all of that. Here you can see she's kind of dashing around in her battle mech right now. You guys can see right here, I really do like the scenery change where she kind of goes into a city and she hits him with a big laser. So I think the Awakening looks cooler than the Awakening art, which I really do like. How I like whenever they use the sprite animation still. You know, as cool as the little cut-in pictures are whenever they do the animation, I do love the sprite aesthetic whenever they stick to it, and you do see a little bit of that with the robot kind of roaming around there. So moving on, guys, we got the female mechanic. The reason why I brought so much attention to the glasses will become apparent here. And it's going to be hard to see her new skill. It does kind of have like a two-part. There it is right there. Kind of shoots like this huge AoE artillery shot here, and then a secondary honeycomb explosion afterwards. So yeah, you can see this humongous range, which I'm going to say that mechanic has a lot of ways to group people together, but maybe doesn't have the greatest range. And there you can see the glasses I was talking about. Dude, the glasses are so ridiculous. How much time was spent on the glasses mugshot right there? Shining glasses and everything. Obviously very generic explosion type attack, but dude, that's so ridiculous. They spent so much time on her little glasses shine thing. Anyway, moving on, female Spitfire. Now her aesthetic is twofold. So there's her new skills. She has a new kind of field grenade right there. You can see it's just a big square basically, and it does seem like it holds, and it does last for quite a bit of time there. So used quite a bit. There you can see right there. It does seem like it might be grouping, and there you can kind of see that it's like stacked on top of each other. So maybe this is maybe not a new grenade, but maybe just an upgrade to an existing grenade. But then we also saw a type of suction grenade as well, so kind of stacked on top of each other. It's kind of hard to tell. You know, sometimes it's hard to tell if it's a new passive or it's a new skill. But this one right here, you can see it's kind of like a suction grenade on top of this big explosion right there, and this swirling suction. That might be her new skill, and then this might just be a new holding claymore or something like that. Hard to tell, but I really do like the 3A right there, where she kind of comes into the foreground. Like I said, I really love it whenever they stick with the sprite aesthetics, and there you can see it's just a sprite with her new jetpacks, which that, again, as I mentioned earlier, is something that comes with the 3A. She does have a lot more air mobility now with her jetpack, basically able to fly, maintain her air superiority better than just constantly hitting the jump button. So she gets a new jetpack, basically, which is kind of cool, and you can kind of see it more in action here with this kind of view. And I really do like this. This is a really cool awakening. So obviously we don't have that yet. It's actually going to be coming to KDNF over here in January. So it's actually just a couple, maybe a week or so until we see that in KDNF, where you can maybe make more judgments in terms of the damage and all of that. But at least it looks pretty cool. So, and yeah, you guys finally can stop, you know, the Harikiri. Stop the blades, okay? If they're coming, okay? You don't have to worry about it. But speaking of which, guys, I mean, the reason why so many people were so upset that female gunners got delayed this long is because there's not very many awakenings left. So the upcoming Neo awakenings, I mean, you guys can see the characters left. We got, you know, some of the latest characters in the game. Knight, Lancer, Agent, and the supplementary characters, the Creator and the Dark Knight, are the only characters that have yet to get their third awakening. So, I mean, we basically are at the tail end of this, and Knight is coming here in February, which is obviously what I've been waiting basically since day one for. I'm waiting for the Night Awakenings. I can just wait until February, and I'm happy about that. But after all of those awakenings get released, guys, they're going to immediately after May start into the balance patches with the characters, which I think is highly necessary, okay? We've seen this right away. When these 3As get released, a lot are more powerful than others. It's just not balanced at all. You know, the Battle Mage that got released, the Vagabond, the Monk, these are characters that got really huge buffs with their third awakening. And then you look at characters like my female Brawler, which I almost had to question whether or not I was stronger at all after the 3A. I felt like I got nerfed. So the damage discrepancy, it's definitely there for some characters over others, and I think they just need to balance those numbers out. It's very simple. So they're going to worry about that after all the 3As are out, which is fair, you know, and there's been a lot of playtesting on a lot of these characters to kind of make better judgments than just snap judgments like that. So I'm waiting for that, and hopefully, you know, come February, I don't have to completely quit DFO because they fucking shit on my EK. So I'm waiting till February to kind of make that decision. But anyway, guys, moving on in terms of the content, guys, we've got the Black Purgatory. Now, how the Black Purgatory works, it is basically going to be another endgame dungeon, very similar to things like Pandemonium War, very similar to things like Oculus. It's basically an endgame dungeon, which has a limitation of 2 entries per week, but once per day. So you will need 2 days per week to do this, and it's just more kind of farming content to kind of get some gear improvements, okay? Before I show the teasers and stuff, because I want to talk about reception already received in KDNF, but just to talk about what it does, basically it drops a couple different items. It drops this Ore of Despair as well as the Pupil of Fear, and what you can use those for is basically to modify your Sirocco gears, and what you can do is kind of change the modifier on it to, like, if you have bonus damage, you can change it to all attack, and then you can also make sure that the values of those modifiers are the maximum value possible. So basically, it's a way to optimize your Sirocco gear. And I do mention that this right here may seem like not all that much, but it actually could potentially increase your damage by quite a bit, depending on how your distribution of modifiers are. The strategy is not to stack one modifier too heavily. You want to kind of equalize all of the modifiers that you have, and that will give you the biggest boost of damage. So this kind of conversion actually could contribute to quite a bit of extra damage, but at the end of the day, all it really is just a slight bit optimization to what you already have. You also have the option to give yourself awakening levels, and there is going to be a system to simulate whether or not you're going to be stronger by putting those optimizations on or not, which is really cool. Kind of saves you the hassle of testing and failing and getting weaker, because that would be completely unacceptable. Aside from that, though, you can also use these materials to upgrade your product of wisdom. Here it kind of mentions you're guaranteed an upgrade up to +7 from +5. So it's just a guarantee type of thing. My guess is the cost is going to be exorbitant, but it's guaranteed. And product of wisdom are already extremely powerful. Things like the perfect control are already some of the strongest epics in the game, and now we have the option to make them even slightly stronger at guaranteed. But getting them to +5 is going to be the hard part. That can cost you several millions of gold, but the fact that this is guaranteed is going to be very, very nice for people who are already at high levels with their epics. Things like perfect control and things are definitely going to be a lot more. People are going to try to invest a lot more into them because of this feature. And lastly, guys, you can also get product of corruptions, which basically are epic gears that will be product of wisdoms. You can sell them in the auction hall. My guess is they're only going to be certain ones that finish certain sets, maybe one piece out of an entire set, but that's one piece that you don't have to worry about anymore because you can buy it from the auction hall because it will become a product of wisdom. So they can be obtained via drops or recipes, which are RNG based, obviously, but this is huge. Imagine you're only 2 out of 3 of a set, and then all you have to do is buy that last piece from the auction hall. So it's something to look forward to with this dungeon. Now, those are basically what you do the dungeon for. Let's check about how the dungeon looks. There is a teaser page, but it's just a couple seconds long. It doesn't really show much. Okay, and then we also have the gameplay trailer. Kind of see we're in some kind of dilapidated train area. There is some kind of system going on the top right there. I'm not really sure, some kind of timer system that you probably have to worry about. But mainly, guys, we got a lot of boss fights that have a lot of gimmicks. You can see a lot of gimmick attacks, a lot of things you're going to have to dodge, and this is kind of very similar to what we already have with P-War and stuff like that. Most of the fights there are not just straightforward fights. It's really nice to have a lot to worry about, and it looks very challenging. I mean, the mobs have a lot of HP, so this is some end-game type stuff, perhaps after Sirocco or something like that, type of improvements that you're making on your gear. Makes sense because most of the reason you're farming this is to improve your Sirocco gear, so this is post-Sirocco gear optimizations, but yeah, a lot of different animations and gimmicks you got to worry about. Now, the one thing I want to bring attention to, though, guys, is the like to dislike ratio. Okay, you guys can see here, not looking so good. Okay, people are not happy about this. Mainly the Koreans are not happy about this. Why? You know, I'm kind of curious as to what's the problem with this. And I've kind of translated some of these, hopefully that we can kind of gauge what their problem is. I haven't graduated from Sirocco yet, but I'm doing my homework again. This word homework is used very, very liberally in Korea to kind of degrade people's patience when it comes to farming content. You know, people don't like doing homework. This is kind of the bane of the level 95 cap existence, and it will be fracturing a little bit of the player base, you know, when you have a new content that can only be entered a couple times a week. You know, now we're worrying about a lot of different dungeons. It kind of makes sense. We're working about, you know, Oculus. We're worried about Oculus hard mode. We're worried about, you know, our talisman dungeon. We're worried about, you know, both talisman dungeons. That's one thing we don't actually have, the new talisman dungeon yet. That's something that Korea has to deal with. You know, they're worried about Sirocco. They're worried about, you know, there's so much what they call homework in the game, and it really can get kind of overwhelming. Let's see what this guy says. Mythic of Wisdom. So yeah, random mythics, random epics from Sirocco farming, random farming from your talisman dungeons, random rooms. There's a lot of randomization. Again, a lot of complaint about the homework of this game. All right, guys, the content itself seems to look kind of fun, but there's no existing farming mitigation that makes users want to vomit. Are we tired of Oculus and the Made Mountains, which is basically just the new talisman dungeon? Basically what they're saying is they're tired of grinding, man. Too much homework. And 95 cap, that was the main complaint, and they're adding more and more stuff on top of the 100 cap with stuff like this to kind of optimize even further their level 100 cap gear. And my point to kind of coincide with that really isn't so much the farming. You know, I really don't mind farming in MMOs. It's kind of like a main staple of MMOs. My main complaint is actually what for. I'm really asking what's the purpose of doing this. You know what, this feels really reminiscent of the Beast Dungeon back in 90 cap. You know, we did the Beast Dungeon to optimize our accessory sets and stuff, and we were just like getting stronger and stronger. And then at the end of it, we had a new level cap anyway. And so there was like literally no reason to upgrade your other stuff. You know, it's just like completely just a waste of time because you could just get the new stuff and it basically outdated everything. We are optimizing all of this level 100 cap gear to the level of absurdity. I know this will be a pretty decent damage increase for it, but it's like, dude, you don't need to do this level of optimization, especially not do a content that's just going to be tiresome and farming content for optimizations. But what for, really? There isn't really any content to warrant it, and level 100 cap has proven that you can get really, really, really strong just by using the base equipment. I mean, Sirocco was too easy when it got released in a lot of people's eyes, and we're just optimizing that already overpowered gear. It's going to be a hard task for them to make new content and not have that be a problem. So optimizing that gear that's already mega strong, even that slightly bit stronger, it's going to leave that taste that Beast left in my mouth, at least, in terms of like, what's the point, really? And I kind of feel that at least with the gearing. Again, a lot of Koreans don't like the homework aspect of it, but I think it's mainly, is this really worth all of the time you're going to be spending to do all of that? This might actually be more worth it in terms of that. But anyway, guys, moving on. That's just how they kind of feel about this, but that's not the only thing that has been kind of negatively downvoted on by Koreans. But moving on, guys, we have got a new confirmed subclass for KDNF, and that is going to be the 5th subclass for the female Slayer. And aside from this image, guys, we've got pretty much nothing else. I mean, nothing else aside from the fact that they're confirmed and this is how she looks like. She might use a katana type weapon, so I guess there's that. And we also, for the female Slayers, we don't actually have one that is dedicated to using katanas. You could say Swordmaster, but anyway, fact of the matter is, 5th subclass, she, if I'm being honest, she kind of looks like a grandma. I don't know if it's the pose or the white hair, the glasses, which are kind of associated with. Anyway, she looks kind of like an old grandma, but she's probably going to be completely badass, most likely, just because the 5th subclasses usually are. I'm thinking Ghostblade, who also uses a katana, just completely badass and overpowered. She's probably going to be the most OP one. Who knows, though? Time will tell. Probably an assassin-type character, which I think is kind of weird because Vagabond is already very, very, I don't know, flashy and assassin-like. So we'll see how this character plays. But we got no other news aside from that one picture, so let your imaginations run wild with that one. Some other stuff that we got, guys, is the level 100 epic mythic revamp, as well as the weapon option revamps as well. Basically, guys, I mean, a long story short, if the epic currently in the game, level 100 cap, it's not very good, they're going to be revamping and trying to close the gap between the levels of gear disparity that we have right now. I mean, it's very obvious that we have some sets that are way stronger than others, okay? You look at the Dancer set, and some people just like disassemble this set immediately because it's not good either way. Now, I do want to mention, you know, there is some sets that are better than others just by sheer virtue of them working better as a set. Like, for instance, there are some sets that work really well as 2-piece or 3-piece sets, but like are terrible as 5 sets, and vice versa. There's some really good 5-set effects that are out there, and I do like that diversity, but there are some epics, again, like the Dancer epic, that are just bad on all fronts. Like, they're not good at all. So hopefully they can alleviate some of those problems that those sets have, as well as some of the epic weapons. You know, they kind of brought up in particular the long lance. They have weapons out there that actually punish you severely and can, like, in terms of cooldown reduction. So, you know, you don't want to wear a weapon that punishes you and makes it less often that you're able to cast skills. And they're also going to be increasing some of these lower popular weapons, such as poles and bowguns and daggers, in terms of just making their base numbers stronger. So they're just basically going to be revamping gear. Hopefully you haven't been disassembling gear just because it's underpowered, because we kind of figured this kind of rebalancing was going to happen at some point. There's no reason for them to have weaker epics for no reason. And so hopefully you just haven't been getting rid of those, because they're going to be changing most of them. Moving on, though, guys, we do have a Curse Ruby expansion, which I think is best explained in their little trailer video here. But how it works, and I think it's kind of funny, they have Mistress here, of all people, doing Curse Ruby. Very odd choice, but sometimes it looks like you got a random chance to get access to a separate dungeon. And if you go into here, what it will do is allow you to, once you clear the boss, give you a chest that can be used to upgrade your existing chest of lower tier. So you guys can take your lower tier chest, basically make a higher tier one, which is great because you weren't going to open those chests anyway, so you might as well have some type of use for it. It did look, if you guys saw before, there was like some type of clear count, so it doesn't look like you can do it more than 5 times here, but looks like, you know, it's just a use for you to be able to upgrade those lower tier into higher tier. Here you can see it's actually using 4 or 5 chests and upgrade it into a ancient chest. So those are obviously, when you're going down this many floors of the Cursed Ruby, you definitely don't want to waste your time opening these low tier chests. But on top of that, guys, we do have a new maximum level of 60. So 60 floors, and then you guys can see that is the very end of the Cursed Ruby is 60 floors. So they have increased the floor count, as well as added a feature to be able to upgrade your chest, which is, those two things are awesome, especially if you're going to spend as much time as you do in Cursed Ruby. And lastly, guys, the last thing that they kind of teased, at least here in part 1, was a silhouette of the Ozma raid, which I'll just spoil it. In part 2, they actually did a little bit more than just showing a silhouette, but I'll just say it wasn't very much even yet. So that was the end of part 1. Again, shout out to Yukino for that, and I'm just going to go ahead and quickly jump to part 2 because the aforementioned teaser is there. So that's the first thing that they showed off. Ozma Raid teaser. Now I'm going to tell you right now, it's a Ray show to shit again, maybe even worse than the other content, because, well, I'll just let you watch.
인간의 욕심은 사그라들지 않더군. 하지만 죄물로 세상을 뒤엎는데 무슨 소용이겠는가? 깨어나지 말게, 친구야.
I don't know how many times we have killed this clown. Like, literally just casually killing this guy like 3 or 4 times. Guys, I gotta say, like, honestly, that was the most boring, uneventful, nothing trailer I have ever seen. Now, the ratio obviously proves that. But, guys, I mean, I've tried to translate some of these, but basically what the sentiment is people are not happy. They are not happy at all with these announcements. Look at this guy. Neopol, no brain? Wait. Kim Jong-un presses the nuke button on Joe. Wait, what? Kim Jong presses the nuke button. Okay. That might have been a little too far, dude. They are not happy. Needless to say, not happy about the announcements, basically. I actually would like you guys to tell me in the comments below why that one got so ratioed so hard. Actually, most of the content in the festivals have just not been very well received. Maybe it's just because there wasn't enough, especially in that trailer. I mean, it showed nothing, no new content whatsoever. But even on top of that, you know, with the things I mentioned about the grinding and people are not happy about the homework, and you know, we'll see. Okay, but when somebody says presses the nuke button on Jeju Island, where Neopol's headquarters, god dang, they are not happy. But as I mentioned, guys, part 2 of the festival was mostly focused around Neopol's other offerings in terms of other gates aside from KDNF. Now, I don't want to harp on them too much since this series is not really about other Neopol games. It's really just focused around KDNF. But I do want to talk about them because, man, I'm excited for them. What can I say? First of all, Project Barbecue. Guys, we have been waiting so long. In fact, I looked it up. 2 years ago is when the last time I made a video on the first trailer of Project Barbecue, and we finally got a second one, and I just want to play it. Now, as I mentioned, I don't really want to talk about this here since this is mostly focused around KDNF stuff, but I do want to highlight some of the new stuff that we got. There's a lot of stuff that's showcased here. Let's showcase some of the new stuff we got. We got some more gameplay of the Weapon Master. a little bit more gameplay on the Berserker. Both characters we have seen a little bit of in the past already, but now we got a new character in the male ranger. You guys can see right here, dashing around a lot. And here, actually, you're seeing a little bit of the PvP. So this trailer does showcase a little bit of PvP action. I guess he's shooting, knocking them down and stuff like that. We do got a lot more systems to talk about. We got another character right here. First, the female, Elementalist character. First female mage character showcased right here. And a lot of AoE juggling type moves. And obviously all of the elementals shown as well. And we also got one more as well in the female striker. So that's our first female fighter showcase. Now, I will mention, you know, I noticed she's a female striker just from the sound she's making, but in terms of the animations, I'm not seeing a lot of hardly any attacks that are female striker centric. So they probably changed her a lot to make her more, to match the more action oriented combat instead of just burst heavy combos. She has like actually these juggle combos going on. See the fight with the flaming Binoche, jumping mechanics. And we got a lot of dodging and stuff showcased. Again, I'm going to be showcasing this trailer in a lot more detail later. Got a new cool boss fight right here. And I want to talk about, you know, I'm going to start up that Road to Project Barbecue series again. But guys, look at this. Oh my God. Now, I'm not even going to pretend to act excited because that is like about the 300th time I've seen that because I've replayed it a million times. But it is a knight character. He is using a shield as well as a spear. And you guys can see his spear actually grew in size and his shield actually decreased in size. So I don't know if that's a new subclass in general or if it's going to be how this character plays. But you basically have to choose between one of those two options. Juggle combos for days. Guys, male knight to DFO, or I guess Project Barbecue, I should say. Yo! I cannot believe that, but that's mostly everything that we got. Just to mention it, you know, yeah, that it looks like a male knight. His official name is the Phantom Guard, and he is going to be a new official character. There's been a lot of speculation since he uses a lance. People called him like the 5th subclass for Demonic Lancer. I don't think so, especially because of the fact he doesn't look anything like a Demonic Lancer. He looks like its own unique character. He has his own unique design. You guys can see he's wearing full armor. I mean, is it so hard, Neopol? It's only been 15, 16 years. You finally got a true blue knight character. He is so god tier. I want to just give you all my money right now. I need to jump ship, okay? I damn near jumped ship already. If there was a ship to jump to, KDNF would have been long gone. I'd have been jumped on top of this guy's armor. That is me in the armor right there. Dude, I cannot wait to see more about this character. I want to play it so bad. But yeah, new Phantom Guard character. And you guys can see he uses a spear and a shield. And we'll talk about that more in more detail later. But on top of that, guys, we also got confirmation of a new archer type character. Now, it's not confirmed if this is a playable character, but at the very least, it does showcase a character archetype that could be in the game, as well as the weapon type. It has a very unique look to it. It has like the very flashy cape right here and a very unique look to it. But the fact that she's using a bow, I mean, it just kind of lends itself to say, hey, this might be a character in the future, and it only makes sense in this type of game type. I mean, this fantasy game, I can't believe we've gone this long without an archer type character. So it's not confirmed yet, so I'm not going to say that is a new character we're getting, but it is an archetype that I am not going to be surprised when they actually release that character. So I've said it 1,000 times, we're going to be making a Project Barbecue episode on this new trailer and basically all the stuff that we know so far. I could have made a lot of videos since then. It's been 2 years since I made my first video, but finally we've got some meat on the bones and a lot of stuff to talk about with Project Barbecue, at least with the trailer, and I want to talk about that at a later date. But moving on, guys, we got DNF Mobile. Now, you know, I've been kind of wishy-washy on the whole mobile craze, you know. I'm not the type of guy who really cares much about mobile, or at least I thought, but I think there's a lot of potential. And you guys can see here, Action Studio, the same guys behind Project Barbecue, are working on the mobile port of this game. And I do want to say it is a lot like a port, you know, if we actually get to the gameplay side of things. It is a port of the actual game. You guys can see the aesthetics look very sprite-based, you know, very high detail, high-res sprites. They actually got updated sprites for the Slayer as well as the female fighter. Updated, you know, basically the game looks like DFO, except updated a lot. You know, a lot of the sprites are updated. and it just looks like normal DFO. I mean, it basically plays the exact same, which is definitely a lot better than all of the offerings they've had for the mobile version of DFO. They've had things like DFO Spirits and all of that, and they all just didn't feel right. Well, this feels like a mobile port of the game, and it looks like even an improvement. Now, one thing that I'm going to have a hard time getting over is going to be this UI, and basically how are you going to control it. And I've played a few games, mobile games, that actually have this control scheme, and it actually is easier to get used to than you would think. And even if you don't like that control scheme, most of these phone games nowadays have a means of connecting your controller to it, and so you can at least control it with the controller if you're unable to play with the touchscreen. But, you know, a lot of the new sprites, guys, are also showcasing a little bit of the PvP, and as far as I can tell, guys, it just looks like normal DFO PvP, dude. I mean, it's everything exactly the same. People doing the exact same kind of combos and stuff. You know, juggle combos, launch combos, picking it up with barbecue, stuff like that. I mean, this is stuff that we see normally in PvP. You can play PvP on mobile. Same thing with the 2v2s they got going on right here. You know, we'll have to see how fluid it is to control and what kind of abusive things you can do. You don't have access to every single skill as far as I know, but you have a good handful of them. Here you can see a little bit of how the UI is working, and I think they have like real matchmaking. You know, you don't have that. A lot of phone games nowadays have like this matchmaking where you're really paired with bots and stuff, but they have voice chat. It seems like people getting ready. This is real people, not just bots you're playing with. So, you know, PvP and dungeons are going to be something that you do in real time, and that's kind of cool. Also, some type of mini games they got going on here, so a lot of different modes to play around with. Here are the new sprite changes. Now, I got to say, I kind of like all of the new sprite changes. I think they look, at least with the male Slayer, it upgraded him from looking like a little short manlet to like an actual pretty badass looking dude. I mean, he kind of looks kind of cool. I even like the female fighter changes. At first, I was a little concerned about the giraffe neck, but I think they've kind of fixed that a little bit, and it looks really, really good. Like I said, guys, I'm not normally a guy to really care about phone games, but I think there is a way, and I have been shown there is ways to make phone games work and be a lot more serious than just, you know, Candy Crush. You know, this is something that looks like a mobile port of the game that we all know and love. You know, I don't see much difference from what I play on the PC here. And if it controls just as well, then guys, this might actually be a legitimate thing. So yeah, we can meme about phone games and stuff like that, but I think, you know, we're seeing, here you can see a Lotus raid of some type. I think we're seeing some potential here. You know, at first I was so like against this idea of phone games, but I do think that phones are powerful enough to make very competent games, and hell, you can even make a DFO clone on the system. I mean, I'm watching it right there. It looks really, really similar to what it is. We'll just have to see how it plays, and I'm actually way more excited than I thought I was going to be about DNF Mobile. So that is basically most of what we got, and hopefully when it comes out I can try it out. But it has been a while since both DNF Mobile and Project Barbecue have been released. We'll have to see how far both of those projects have been going. Hopefully one isn't outshining the other and then they kind of cancel it. That would be the worst news yet. But guys, moving on, DNF Duel, who's next? It's a really weird name, but guys, this is actually the most talked about subject of the festival. It's actually the thing that most people are keying in on. We've kind of known about most of the other stuff. I mean, DNF Mobile and Project Barbecue we've known about for a long time, but this is a brand new project, and I think a lot of people outside of the realm of KDNF and DFO in general are kind of keying in on, and that's because DFO is partnering up with Arc System Works, which everybody knows for all of their anime fighters like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue. They're making a fighting game, a DFO fighting game, showcasing some subclasses already. You know, we're seeing Ranger, we're seeing Male Grappler, we're seeing some type of Striker character, Inquisitor, Male Grappler here. We're seeing a lot of different characters, and Arc System is staying very truthful to the source material. I mean, that is just very Inquisitor-like to do that, and they're doing a really good job. And quite frankly, if I could just talk about Arc System Works, I think they do a phenomenal job of converting anime type IP. They have such a great engine, I think, to convert this anime art style into a 2D fighter. They've done it so many times now. You know, they tried to do it with Grand Blue Fantasy. They try to do it with, you know, they have done it with DBFZ. They take these IPs and they really make them shine in their 2D fighting game environment. My main issue is that I'm not a really big fan of the 2D fighter genre, especially not anime fighters, to be honest with you. But I know there's a lot of people who are really hype about this genre and this game in general. The main thing I want to highlight is I think it's going to bring a lot of attention to Neopol and DNF in general if it's a really good fighting game. And that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, is that, yeah, I may be a bigger fan of Tekken and Soul Calibur and 3D fighters in general, but hopefully it will bring, you know, I know a lot of people who are in the FGC who are talking about this game, bring more light into the Dungeon Fighter IP, which is not as big over here in the West. It's a very niche game that not a lot of people know about, and I think if the game is good, if the systems are good, you're definitely going to be attracting a lot of people, and that's where I'm really worried about it. Grand Blue Fantasy, for instance, didn't really garner a lot of attention because the systems and the gameplay was really slow. Hopefully Arc System kind of makes a system that is compelling enough to garner a wider audience, and maybe, you know, hopefully they don't copy their other systems. It kind of just depends on how good the game is, basically, is what I'm getting at. And that's kind of what's going to determine my own hype on the game. I wouldn't mind getting it if it's a really good fighter, but that's kind of the crux here, is that it has to be a good fighter first, and hopefully it is, so that it can garner a lot more attention and kind of put pressure on all of their other projects and put DNF on the map over here on the West. It could very well do it because a lot of big FGC members are talking about it. But, you know, I can't wait for all of these projects to come to fruition, guys. I really am. Honestly, I'm more excited about these new projects than I am about anything they announced about KDNF, which is probably the main reason why those other videos got ratioed so hard earlier. But lastly, guys, we do have an art showcase or exhibition that they have right here. It's a lot of different art that people have done, animations, people have done some drawings. This is actually a website that you can check on your own. And I do recommend it if you're an artist or if you want to see some cool DFO related artwork. Right there, you guys can see a lot of people doing drawings, some animations as well. And I do recommend just, yeah, I'm going to put the link in the description. They got a lot of different art here. Dude, just let Roxy go, man. Agonzo, get over her, man. Anyway, the site has a lot of cool ones. And then there even is a new Dungeon and Fighter art book, which I actually have 2 copies of this myself right next to me. But, you know, I think these are already sold out. Maybe I can try to get some connection. Hey, Jerry, hook me up. I want a new art book. But definitely, guys, I'm excited for all of this new stuff. I'm excited. Well, there's an anime too as well. I forgot. I didn't even know there was an anime. So if you're one of those guys who are like really into the the DFO IP, if you're one of those guys who just loves DFO, there's an anime out there. I don't know how good it is. I haven't caught it at all. But guys, I'm really excited for all the new stuff. Hopefully I can, you know, on top of that art book that Jerry's going to send me, hopefully Jerry can get me into Project Barbecue. I need to see more about that, and we will be talking more about that in a later video. Check it out on the channel. But guys, that's about all we got for the DNF 2020 Universe Festival. Again, shout out to Yukino Kaori for doing this recap for me and kind of summarizing everything. And it is really, really nice that we have a format here that isn't as, you know, just me guessing around. There's a lot of good info here. I've put links of both the translations in the description as well. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And in the next video, we're going to be going over Project Barbecue with that trailer again, man. I cannot wait until I see more about that character. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you nights later.